And we're live. How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing on this Sunday? I hope everybody's doing well because I'm doing pretty good. I woke up today. I thank God because that's the first thing I do, you know, because in everything that you do, you got to be able to put God first. You got to be able to recognize everything that He has done in your life. And when you wake up on a day like this, on a Sunday, some people are going to church, some people are staying home with their families. Some people are basically attending a church service online. And, it's a great day just to reflect upon your life, upon the blessing and many other things that God have given you and God has provided for you. Because there's so many people that don't have what you have. There's so many people that don't have the things that you have today. So many people are being shot. So many people are in the hospital. And so many people are homeless, but God have given you the breath of life. He have given you the strength. He have provided you so many things on this Sunday that so many people don't even have. So, today's a Sunday, and I woke up today and I was just glad that, I was alive because I was scrolling on the news and I saw there was a mass shooting that happened. And on this channel, first of all, I like to talk about things that is a current event, just like the topic that we're about to cover today. So today I'll be covering the topic about the mass shooting that happened in New Hampshire. And the second part of it will be about the H-1B visa and the executive order that was passed by the president. So this will be the basis of the conversation today. And I'll have a couple clips and videos that I will be reacting to um, of the shooting and a little clip about also the H-1B visa. So like I said from the beginning, you got to thank God for just being alive because not a lot of people have this opportunity for you. Not a lot of people have this opportunity of being alive today. And I just saw that there was a mass shooting. And it's something that has been affecting the U.S. society for a long time, mass shooting. Because recently there was a shooting that happened in Minneapolis where some guy went inside what was it, a Catholic school, and just shot up the place, killed a lot of people, killed a lot of kids, and a lot of them were hurt. A lot of them were rushed in the hospital. And just recently, also there was a shooting that happened in Colorado, and then there was another shooting that happened with the infamous Charlie Kirk, which we all saw it on online. Everybody saw it, and I don't have to repeat what happened. And so we have an issue with gun violence here in the United States. And a lot of people, you know, love their guns, which is the amendment of the Constitution, the Second Amendment, which the Constitution gives you the right to be able to bear arms. It gives you the right to be able to have weapon. It gives you the right to be able to defend yourself. And the purpose of it is to be able to protect yourself from any tyrant government here in the United States. Because when you look overseas, when you look at, excuse me, when you look at overseas and when you look at other countries in the world, many people, many population, many citizens in the world in other countries are basically oppressed because they don't have the Second Amendment. They don't have the weapon to be able to defend themselves and to defend their family from the government. So the government utilize that power to be able to oppress their people. And the founders of this country, when they were making the Constitution, they realized that this could potentially comes to life. This could potentially also happen here in the United States. That's why they implement the Second Amendment inside the Constitution. And so far, the Second Amendment, a lot of Americans exercise it. There's some that don't like it because many people don't like guns, and you have others who love their guns. They use it to protect themselves. Now, the question is, Does gun protect you, or is the gun violence, or is it a person who holds the gun who's the violent one? Of course, there's always some crazy people who will, utilize gun in the wrong way. Has some kind of sinister thought, sinister mind to be able to go into a public setting and just kill people because they don't like them. They'll go to places such as churches, they'll go to places such as school and just try to kill people because they don't like them. So this is something that had been going on here in the United States. And so it just came to my attention when I saw the article or the video of the media talking about there was a mass shooting in a country club in New Hampshire. It caught my attention in New Hampshire because, we don't really hear much about New Hampshire. New Hampshire is a small state in the eastern part of the United States, in the eastern coast of the United States. And it's a pretty small state. And it doesn't really make the news a lot. And this mass shooting that happened in New Hampshire, it seems like CNN did not talk about it. It seemed like Fox News did not talk about it. MSNBC did not talk about it. And I was just surprised that mainstream media did not pick this up, because mainstream media will usually pick up these type of information or these type of things that happen in the United States. Maybe because of what happened to Charlie Kirk. I don't know. I'm not an expert in that. But it could probably potentially be, um, they don't want to bombard the public with more information about shooting, especially how the whole world witnessed the shooting of Charlie Kirk. And they don't want to bring up gun conversation again in the main front, or as the primary argument or topic for a lot of people on social media, and even people in Capitol Hill. So I guess the shooting happened in a clubhouse, in a country club, excuse me. It happened in a country club. So the shooting happened in a country club, and it was in the city of Nashua. Nashua, actually, it's called Nashua. Yeah, so it's called Nashua. It kind of sounds like Joshua, but with the NA instead of a SO. I mean, instead of a JO, excuse me. So it's called Nashua, New Hampshire. Like I said from the beginning, New Hampshire is probably not even known to making mainstream news. It's not even known to making a lot of news, whether it's good or bad. So when this mass shooting happened, I kind of wanted to dig a little deeper to see what was this shooting about and what was the cause of it. Who was impacted. If there's anybody who was impacted by this mass shooting, I pray and I hope that they'll be able to recover, heal. And if there's anybody that lost their life in this mass shooting, my condolences goes to them and their family. Um, Now let's try to take a look at some videos.
I'm a prosecutor. I'm a prosecutor with the Attorney General's office. I'm a prosecutor with the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General's office is helping the Nashua Police Department in this. investigation. We don't have a prepared statements, but we'll certainly take any questions, knowing that this is an active and ongoing investigation. The amount of information we can share is fairly limited.
Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, at this point, again, it is an ongoing investigation. We issued a news release in which an adult male entered the golf course area, and there was a shooting. An adult male died. Additional people were injured, and it's currently being investigated at this point.
Is this some sort of a hate crime, or what do you believe?
So there's a lot of details that we need to figure out, and we need to know that information before we can share it, and that's one of the details that we're trying to learn.
Well, we heard that he yelled out, "The kids are okay," and "Free Palestine." So what is that?
Yeah, well, we're dealing with the facts and the information that we gather, and once we get that facts and information and have an actual motive that we can share, we'll certainly do that. But right now we get to deal with the facts and the information. For example, there was some information that there were 2 shooters. That turned out to be erroneous. We can definitively say that there is only 1 shooter.
Was this a targeted shooting?
Again, that's facts and information that we're trying to develop right now.
CRM is so slow. So slow. Thank God.
How many victims?
1 adult male is deceased. There are multiple shooting victims. We're trying to iron out that particular detail. Some of the shooting victims went to local fire departments, so that's why we're not sure of that detail just yet. How many people were injured in addition to the deceased male?
Is it okay to think that those victims are okay if they're at a fire department rather than the hospital?
It's too early to say at this point what exactly the condition of the non-deceased people are.
Why were they not taken to a hospital?
Again, some people went by themselves to local fire departments.
Can you tell us if the shooting was at the wedding or the restaurant?
Yeah, again, that information is still being developed, and as soon as we can share that without interfering with the integrity of the investigation, we certainly will do that. I think there was.
This man really seemed a little uncomfortable answering a lot of questions, and I'm not surprised because, you know, when a situation like this happens, you're trying to basically keep as much information away from the public, because if you release most of the information all at once, most of this can backfire. And, you know, my condolences go to the person who died. I guess there was 1 adult that died. And I guess one of the person asked, there was someone who said Free Palestine. And I wonder if this was a hate crime, because lately we've been seeing a lot of shooting that been going on. The shooting that happened in Minneapolis in the Catholic school, it was a guy who, if I'm not mistaken, he was a transgender. And I guess he just went out to go look for people to basically commit crime upon. And it was Catholic kids. And it was kind of shocking for the nation, the fact that, you know, if you're a parent, you send your kids to school, you know, knowing that you will come and pick them up. And all of a sudden you hear that the school that your kids goes to, there was a shooting and a couple of the kids were dead. You know, as a parent, you must be really frustrated. You must be really scared. You must be really shocked. It's nerve-wracking because that's the last thing you want to hear as a parent. And this is a common occurrence that's happening where you have a lot of people who are mentally ill, who are mentally screwed up, who have access to a lot of weapon, which, you know, a lot of guns and a lot of firepower. They will just go look for the weakest link in society, which are the kids and the other, you know, communities, and target them and basically just trying to eliminate them. And this is something that is happening throughout the nation. It's been happening for years. It seems like nobody's really trying to change anything about it. And I think it's a situation where it's kind of hard to actually try to stop, because for me personally, I think, you know, there could be many other ways that the government can utilize the resource that they have to be able to evaluate some people who has guns, some people that can actually have gun in society. Because if the government have the capacity to evaluate potential government employees, doing polygraph tests, doing lie detector tests, and just many other things. I think the government can utilize those resources, which can cost a lot. I can see why the government will not want to do something like that. It can cost a lot, but could potentially save a lot of lives if they utilize most of the money, some money, to be able to help out or evaluate people who wants to basically have guns or be a registered gun carrier.
Are they all gunshot wounds, or are you expecting others?
There were some gunshot wounds. There may be some non-gunshot wounds. And that's one of the details that we're still trying to figure out as part of the investigation that Nashua is actively pursuing.
The suspect arrested, and how long after the shooting was he laying in wait? Had he taken off on the scene?
Yeah, so no suspect has been arrested. A person of interest has been detained pending warrants at this point in time, but there has been no arrests. But we have identified all people involved in the situation, and there's no threat to the general public at this point in time.
I guess you meant, so is the person of interest, where were they located in relation to?
Again, that's information that we're developing, and we can share that. When we can share that, we certainly will.
So I guess the suspect is basically still at large. And I think for the victim and for the victim family, they must be really frustrated because we live in 2025 where damn near every store and every building in the US, there's a high likely chance that there's cameras. And I think they should actually publicize those cameras so everybody can be able to see at least the suspect, because someone could probably potentially recognize them, and someone can potentially also call the police and even help out the police by giving them information about the person. So the fact that, this person right here, he seems like he's a little bit uncomfortable answering some of the question, it tells me that he doesn't probably have enough information on the suspect, because if they did, they would have probably have already released the suspect video footage, his image, and many other things. Because when you compare it to the shooting that happened with Charlie Kirk, yes, the public was demanding the image of the suspect to come out, and the FBI basically came out with the image of the suspect in less than a day or two. So I think I don't think this person here, he has a lot of information about what's really going on with the suspect. He doesn't probably know how he looks. But if it happened in a clubhouse, in a country club, I'm assuming that those country club probably had cameras. Someone saw them. In a public setting like that, there's always an eyewitness. There's always someone who probably knows someone. So I think this should be something that, the police should probably try to solve real quick.
Do we know the type of weapon that the suspect or person of interest had?
No, other than a firearm, no. And we also don't know if there are additional weapons involved.
Do we know if the shooter is connected to the wedding or the restaurant in any way?
Yeah, again, that's one of the things that we're certainly trying to find out and trying to develop. And once we can share that, we certainly will.
Chief, I guess when you have a weapon involved, can you just talk about this as a public event? There's a wedding going on, people are enjoying a night in Nashua. Can you just have the microphone and just talk about all of this happening? And night people are supposed to feel safe and have an enjoyable night.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate circumstance.
So I think one additional thing that we needed to know is that any family members are looking for family members. I think the point of meeting place is here at the Sheridan in Nashua. So looking for any family members who might have been at any of the events at the golf course to come here and be assisted.
Do we know how many people were at the wedding?
Don't.
It must be very devastating for a lot of family members, to hear these type of news, especially when you try to contact your family members and they're not picking up the phone. your heart can drop. It can be really nerve-wracking. It can be very scary. And in a situation like this, a lot of people probably are asking for answers. A lot of people in the communities are probably trying to seek answers to what happened. Where's their family members? Are they in the hospital? Are they one of the victim that got shot? Are they one of the victim that is deceased? So there's a lot of question in a situation like this. And when we look at shooting that be happening in schools and even like in the Catholic school, a lot of parents were probably frustrated to just see, you know, a bunch of kids all who was basically running around. They were scared or fearful of their life. It must be very tragic to see something like that as a parent, as someone who has loved one who's basically the same age as those kids that got shot in Minneapolis. It's very tragic, and I hope a lot of family be able to find at least comfort, to be able to find, peace in a situation like this.
A witness said that people there at the venue tackled the shooter and took the gun away from him. Can you confirm that, or can you talk about that?
I can't talk about that now. Again, it's still active and ongoing. The Nashua Police are doing a great job gathering evidence, finding witnesses, talking to witnesses. But this incident is only a few hours old. There are multiple witnesses that need to be talked to, multiple videos that need to be obtained and then looked at. So once we get a fuller understanding of what happened, including possible motive, we certainly will share that when we can do so. And again, I think it's too early to talk about what some people might have thought happened and focus on facts and evidence, which we're still gathering.
The video of this incident, and how helpful was the surveillance video in determining that there weren't two shooters?
So in many cases, there's videos, and I think this case would be no different. As to the extent of video, again, that's something that's still being developed in terms of not only video, but video from surrounding areas that could shed light on how people got there and other type of information.
The vehicle at the fire department that has yellow tape around it, is that connected to the suspect? Is that where he left the vehicle and went into the venue?
Yeah, frankly, I don't know that information, so I can't provide any insight on that. Anything else?
It's a
Is there
fearful
anything-
situation for many people there this evening with the lockdown that was in place. Just any words to kind of quell some of those fears, maybe from people out there who are worried or concerned?
Well, so I work with homicides, and every homicide is a concerning situation. But at this point in time, Nashua has done a great job at identifying all the relevant parties and making sure that at this point in time, there's no further threat to the public. So that's what we stated in the press release, and we feel confident repeating right now. Again, there was
Crime investigator or like even homicide investigator, it must be really difficult for them. You got to have a lot of patience to be able to work in that department, because we as citizen, we're used to just watching like CSI, thinking that you solve a crime in less than 1 hour or maybe 2 hours of a TV show. But in reality, it takes them around maybe weeks, months, years, and even decades to be able to solve a crime. So they got to have a lot of patience when it comes to also solving a crime. And they got to tread lightly and tread carefully also, because, they don't want to overdo certain things or try to accuse the wrong person. Then that become a whole nother things that they have to deal with. So people who work in homicide, I'm pretty sure it's a job that it's not meant for everyone, because not everyone has the patience that they have and the tolerance that they have. Because imagine working on a case for about 5-10 years and not really, having any form of evidence. And you got to go dig for evidence in communities that's mostly run down, where most of the people won't probably try to talk to you. They're gonna see you as an enemy, and you got to go inside people's home and talk to the victims of the deceased and things like that. So it's a lot that you got to deal with, And like I mentioned, like in my previous videos, I appreciate law enforcement for everything that they've done, because we tend to always highlight, the negative side of law enforcement, but there's always also a positive side of law enforcement. And people who does like homicide investigation, I don't think they get that much appreciation for the things that they do.
It was an erroneous statement. There were two shooters. It's believed there's only one shooter, and we have a person of interest who has been detained, and there is no threat to the general public. So we stated those with assurance in the news release, and we can repeat those today and right now.
The mayor. Please ask you, Mayor, you've been a fixture in this community for decades, and just your reaction tonight to what's transpired and gone on, and your feelings about it.
Well, for any community like ours, this is a big tragedy that there would be such an incident. We are lucky that we have the Nashua Police Department, and I'm confident that they will get to the bottom of this and will bring the appropriate people to justice.
These people don't think things like this happen on a Saturday night in a public area in Nashua, New Hampshire.
That's right. I mean, I've heard from other mayors in other places. Of course, it happens in Dayton and all these other places. But and it always crossed my mind, well, it's unlikely ever to happen in Nashua, but now it has. And I think the message is for every community out there that no matter how unlikely it seems, it can happen. It can happen where you live.
Yeah, you got to expect the unexpected, especially if you live like in a small city or even a small state, or even a state that is most likely not even known to the general public or to the general population. Because if you ask the average Gen Zer here in the United States, point out where New Hampshire is, they probably don't even know where it is. And I'm pretty sure it's a small state. I can't really think of anything that New Hampshire is known for, because when you look at other states such as New York is known for stock market, is known for the New York Knicks, the Mets, the Yankees, and many other things. When you look at states such as California, it is known for Hollywood, for Silicon Valley, and many other things. Texas, everything's big in Texas. When you look at small states such as what's a small state? Small state that has a lot of that is well known in the United States. New Jersey. Yeah, New Jersey is pretty small compared to a lot of states. New Jersey could be one of them. Another one will probably be damn, I can't really think about New Jersey. But yeah, it's kind of hard to think about a small state that is well known in the United States. But New Hampshire is a small state in the United States, and it's basically known for not much. Let me ask ChatGPT what's New Hampshire is known for. Hold on. Okay, according to ChatGPT, New Hampshire is known for White Mountain, Mount Washington, Great Lakes states. When it comes to history, it's the first presidential primary. It has a Revolutionary War heritage, and some of the culture and lifestyle is live free or die modal, and it's a tax-friendly environment. And some unique attraction is Old Man of the Mountains. So yeah, New Hampshire really, compared to other state, it's not really a interesting state to be in. based on just what ChatGPT mentioned when I asked what is New Hampshire is known for. So for the population of a place called Nashua, it must be really devastating because they're probably used to hearing a lot of shooting or mass shooting happening in other states, such as New York, California, Ohio, Michigan, Texas, Florida. And I'm pretty sure this is a small city, and something like this is probably shocking to them. Maybe this is why you see mainstream news not really picking this up. Maybe this is why you see mainstream news such as CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, ABC. They're not really talking about this, So I don't know why. Maybe the Charlie Kirk situation really had an impact on how, a lot of people see guns when it comes to gun violence and things like that.
And even just though there was loss of life of one person at a wedding going on and people in there, this could have been in this day and age of mass shootings, this could have been marked.
And I don't know the extent of the number of people who were injured or shot, so I can't really. I mean, one person is too much, and it sounds like there were more. So hopefully, it's as few as possible.
It's a difficult situation for so many. How are you feeling this evening?
Sad, and, thinking about the families that were affected, and it's just for us sad that it happened in our community.
Can you just talk about the swift action of your department? I know you train on these sorts of incidents. You might want to just explain how quickly your officers were able to diffuse the rumors, find the person of interest, and calm things down.
Sure, they worked together. We trained together. It was a quick response. One going into a dangerous situation like that, but we trained that way. The teamwork, the officers, what they did was remarkable.
Are there any federal agencies involved in this service at all?
Yes, we had to call in, obviously, an event like that was reported. We called in mutual aid from several towns and some agencies.
Was there a call for an active shooter? What type of call do you get when something that's happening at the public place?
To be honest with you, I don't know exactly how it came in. Shots fired, active. I don't know.
Chief, were officers already at the scene?
Again, I don't know that. I got here as quick as I can, and the information obviously was pretty coming from different angles and stuff like that. And you're trying to weed out what's real, like the Attorney General said. So
this credit card has an interest rate that's really, really low. How low? This low. The credit card that's in your wallet right now.
Talk about the cooperation, interstate cooperation from New Hampshire, Massachusetts, because there are communities on both sides. Some people shelter place. Can you talk about how you're able to work together?
Yes, we have great partnerships with Massachusetts as a stone throw away. I'm getting calls from the chiefs and other departments that want to come and assist. So, we talk about brotherhood, and they're there when it really gets tough. So we had multiple agencies coming and responding right away. Phone call away to Current State Police, Sheriff Newcomb, and they were here pretty quickly.
Chiefs, there are several people we talked to who left their belongings there, their cars there.
They look kind of surprised. Like this, they got that look of someone who did not expect something like this to ever happen in their city. And it's probably shocking for them, especially for a place like New Hampshire. And I'm pretty sure these police department, they're shooken because these type of things does not happen in small town or a white majority town. You hear most of this happen in the urban area. You hear things happening also like in like big cities such as Chicago, Memphis, Los Angeles, New York City, the Bronx, and many other places. So this seemed kind of like surprised, like we did not expect something like this to ever happen. But the fact that you have other states such as Massachusetts, they're rich enough if they need help and things like that, it just shows that this is probably an impactful moment for people who live in this area of New Hampshire, which probably people don't ever talk about.
Lockdown or something, and ultimately came here. Give them an idea of when they might be able to retrieve their things.
Yeah, it's still active. We're still up there working. I can't give a time limit on that. I'd like to. I know everybody would like to get their property or their cars back, but it also is an active investigation. So we're not going to disturb the crime scene.
Again, this still is an active and ongoing investigation. We expect there'll be further developments, but in terms of news releases, I expect that those will be once the deceased person's family and notified and an autopsy has been conducted. We typically put out a news release. That'll probably be tomorrow. And if and when there's an arrest, there'll also be a news release on that. To emphasize again, that person of interest has been detained. There has been an arrest at this point in time. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Can you tell us your name again?
Yeah, it's Peter Hinckley, Hinkley, Senior Assistant Attorney General, Attorney General's Office. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
It must be very devastating for a lot of people to be able to deal with a situation like this, because I think it's harder for the victim's family, because the fact that a suspect is not found yet, the suspect is at large, and yes, like the investigator said, there is more information that could potentially be coming out, and this case most likely will be developing, and I'm pretty sure they reached out to other major agency. Maybe they could potentially get help from the FBI. Maybe they could potentially get help from other agency in the US to be able to solve this type of crime. But this mass shooting happened in a country club where one person was deceased and multiple people was hurt. It's kind of sad to see things like this happen, but the fact that we are seeing a lot of occurrence when it comes to mass shooting here in the United States, nobody's really doing nothing about it. The government obviously is not doing nothing about it. And the law enforcement can't really do nothing about it because they usually just react. They're not really proactive when it comes to a situation like this. And on top of that, you can't really ask law enforcement to be able to secure every school or every building or every club or every places that most of these type of people who are involved in mass shooting, will try to be in. It's kind of impossible to try to mobilize all the law enforcement to be, for example, in front of a school, middle school, high school, and elementary school. It's kind of impossible to do that because there's not enough law enforcement out there to be able to protect, the amount of school that's out there here in the United States. So we got to cut law enforcement a little bit more credit for that. And also on top of that, we've been seeing a lot of things that have been going on, especially when it comes to shooting. A lot of people are advocating for, gun control, stricter gun control. A lot of people are actually saying they should not implement gun control. They have to try to find ways to be able to evaluate who should receive a gun, who should register or be registered as a gun carrier. And the government should be able to do better to be able to find ways to be able to evaluate those type of people. So far, this gun control has been something that is causing a lot of people to wonder, like, are we really safe here in the United States? Because every time you turn on the news, you just hear, oh, there was a shooting that happened. You turn on the news, like, for example, in a place like Chicago, we've seen a lot of teenagers who are just basically having, all these weapons like switches. They got guns with multiple magazines, and they're flexing it on social media, talking about how, gangster they are, how tough they are. They're going to slide on their ops. And like, I just read a report, like in 1 week, Chicago had around like 50 people shot. And out of 50, about 10 people were killed. That's a lot of people just in 1 week. And like I mentioned earlier, like in Minneapolis, there was the mass shooter who came inside a Catholic school and decided to basically shoot up these kids for no apparent reason, because I think he was a transgender or he was dating a transgender or one of those things. So there's a lot of there's a lot of mentally insane people out there that have access to weapon, that have access to firearm. And in my opinion, I think people should have the right to be able to bear arms. People should have the right to be able to have weapon so they can be able to protect themselves, so they can be able to protect their family. Because you cannot imagine, I cannot imagine a parent's not having some kind of protection to be able to protect, some kind of weapon to be able to protect his family. For the people that actually wants to have gun, I think it's a powerful tool to use, to have, if you have family. But at the same time, it's not something where you just put it in the open where your kids can see. Because in some of these scenarios, you have parents who has gun at their house, and they put it like in the open where everybody sees it. But among the kids, one of the kids is probably mentally screwed up. So one day when the parents are gone, he goes inside his parents' room, goes under the bed, get the gun, and then he go shoot up a school, go shoot up a club, go shoot people because they felt like, it was necessary at the moment. And I think as parents, you got to be smart of how, you basically put the gun away, how you protect the gun, how you keep the gun away from the kids, because it's very necessary to do that, or else, kids will have access to it, especially if it's a kid who thinks, just watching all these violence movie, all these gangster movies, all these war movie, it seems like it's a Hollywood thing. You can just grab a gun, go shoot people to solve your problem. And I think for most kids nowadays, they're highly emotional, in my opinion. They're highly emotional. They're not taught how to deal with their issue directly. And they use other coping mechanisms. For guys, it's mostly violence. And they will most likely go to places or go to the point where, they will utilize weapon to be able to solve some of their problems. When you compare back in the days, when you had an issue with someone, either you guys are going to talk it out, or you guys going to go to the grass and duke it out, shake hands, and move on. But, social media has changed a lot. And on top of that, social media has made a lot of people bold. It made them bold to even start, flexing on each other, thinking that, they're invincible, they're untouchable. And some people are going to crash out. And crashing out meaning grabbing a gun to go to places such as a club or a Catholic school to go shoot up kids. So a lot of people have to learn how to control their emotion, and most of it, in my opinion, has to do with how you was raised. because when you look at some people who does those mass killings or mass shooting, at some level they were a little bit psychopath, and either the family knew about it and did not do nothing about it, meaning like go seek help, basically surround him with people who are specialized in those type of things to be able to at least help the kid to see the world in a different lenses instead of trying to always take action in things that it's not really that deep, because you got to be a different type of person to be able to just go into a club or into a school with a bunch of elementary school and just go shoot that place up. Because if you respect humanity and if you value humanity, it's kind of hard for a normal functioning person to do such a thing. But you have a lot of people who are walking in the streets who are basically mentally screwed up, and they will utilize violence just for the pettiest thing. Recently, we saw a video of the Ukrainian refugee that got stabbed inside the train. While she was sitting, there was a guy who had a bunch of mental issues, just took out a pocket knife, stabbed her 6 times, and walked off for no apparent reason. So you have people like that all over the world. You have people like that all over the nation. You have people like that, who are very, very troubled. And it's very, very important to just know who you surrounding yourself with, know who's around you, know who's able to basically help you out, and also know who's able to who you're associating with, because not so many people don't have the opportunity to do that. Not so many people have the awareness to discern between, let me go talk to this person, let me go deal with this person or not. But some people might think they know what they're doing, then it's too late. So yeah, this mass shooting is kind of sad to hear. And it's kind of frustrating also at some point, because it seems like we keep on hearing the same thing and there is no result. There is no solution to this. Because tomorrow we're going to hear another shooting, then we're going to see it on the news. And before you know it, another one's going to happen. And I think the government got to do something about that. Because for me, I'm all for guns, but I'm only for guns when it's not an assault weapon. For example, like an AR or like an AK-47, I'm not really for that. I think the population should have at least like a firearm, like a handgun, like a pistol, maybe like a low power rifle. I think that's what I'm for. But when it comes to like the assault weapon, like what we're seeing with those Glock or the AK-47 that's spitting out a lot of bullets, yeah, I'm a little bit kind of hesitant when it comes to that, because those guns can do a lot of damage, because you can release a lot of bullets in less than a couple seconds compared to a handgun or like a pistol. So I'm for guns, but I think it's also very important, for people to be aware of their surrounding. And I think it's very important for the people that also going to get the guns to also be well evaluated by expert that can determine if this person is mentally ill or if this person is mentally stable to be able to handle a gun. Because I think the issue is not the gun, the issue is the person who's carrying the gun. So if some gun carrier, or if there's a law that is passed or some state, because it always starts with some state and other states will be able to follow. If there's a situation like that, I think this should be a way to I think there should be a way to find means and resource to be able to evaluate a lot of guns owner how mentally stable they are. And if they pass, they can have access to guns. So this is the topic that I want to talk about: the mass shooting that happened in Nashua, New Hampshire. The next topic that I'll be talking about is hold on, let me get some water real quick. Whew. So the next topic that I'll be talking about is about the H-1B visa. Recently, President Donald Trump, he signed an executive order basically restricting H-1B visa for a lot of foreign workers. Based on the little research that I did, the H-1B visa was enacted in 1990. And the purpose of it was to provide foreign workers who has specialized skills and certain skills that was needed by a lot of companies, Defense Department, and many other industries in the U.S. to help them to be able to find jobs because they were considered as non-immigrant here in the United States. So in 1990, the government basically created the H-1B1 visa. You get a So the government created a H-1B1 visa. And from 1990 until now, so the purpose was it to basically help foreign workers to be able to find jobs, especially the one who came here in the United States, because they have some sort of specialized skills. And they were only able to stay in the US for about 3 years and to be able to renew the visa for extension of 5 years. So in total, they can stay in the US for about 8 years. And another requirement was they need to have a bachelor's degree or higher education, meaning doctorate or PhD in a specialized skill set or degree that is highly needed here in the United States. And on top of that, the United States was giving out around 65,000 visa throughout the world. Now that depends on the country that United States, deem as either American ally or the population of that country could potentially have better skills or even higher skill set than the population here in the United States. Or if there's a person in certain country that has a level of skill set that a lot of corporation here in the United States wants, the United States will go in that country, propose them the H-1B visa to come in the US to be able to work. One prime example, there's plenty of example out there, but the one that we probably could all relate to or even know is Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein was well known as a very intelligent man. He had a lot of controversial things that, we can all bring up about him, but he was born in Germany. And during World War II, his knowledge and skill set that he had about, chemistry, building bomb physics, and many other things, it was actually recognized by the German government. And it got to the point where I think the US even brought him here in the US to be able to build weapons. And one of the famous weapons that he built was the atomic bomb. And then he built other things, with his knowledge until now. His, if I'm not mistaken, like his equation, I forgot what the equation is called. It's well known among a lot of people in the science world, in the physics world. And so that's one prime example, because he basically, the United States government went inside Germany and brought him back here in the United States. to be able to help many of the United States scientists, to be able to help many of the United States industry, and to even to help many of the United States um, Defense Department and many other industry that's needed. So the H-1B1 visa was designed for that. And on top of that, it provided a lot of incentive for a lot of countries' citizens to be able to come here in the United States. And when they came here in the United States, most of them stayed. Most of them decided to, start a family here. They got married and they continue on with their life because the purpose of it was for them to come here, be here for about 8 years, and then go back to their country. So now this executive order will basically restrict a lot of companies from hiring a lot of their employees to be H-1B visa foreign workers. So this could potentially have a huge impact on so many H-1B visa workers because this executive order will not have an impact on the current population or current employees that has an H-1B visa. It's for the new applicant that will be coming. Now, companies will have to pay around $100,000 as an annual fee if they're hiring a lot of H-1B visa workers. So this put a lot of pressure on a lot of corporations here in the United States, especially in tech. Because when you look at tech, for example, the tech industry in the United States, it's having a very hard time competing with companies like Huawei in China. It's having a hard time, trying to compete where a lot of businesses or tech businesses like in Korea or in Japan or like in India and places like that. So the United States goes out throughout the world, try to seek the brightest mind, the smartest people out there that can come in and basically, help boost the economy because they come in with to help create innovation, creativity, and many other things. So this H-1B visa, I think it was something that was implemented in 1990. And a lot of people who work in tech, a lot of people who comes here in the United States, most of them are foreigners who are focusing on studies that actually matter. Because when you go to like a college or university here in the United States, and you look at some of the exchange student or the foreign student department, most of them are kids who come here to study things such as science, technology, engineering, math, health, and many more. Because most of these foreign students that come here in the United States, either to study or to the H-1B visa, they're coming here because they're mostly focusing on the STEM-based program. STEM is known, it stands for science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and you can also add like agriculture, health, and many more. So most of the student comes here to study those things compared to a lot of Americans don't really focus on those degrees because in other countries, they basically be pushing mathematics very hard in most of the kids' earlier educational process because it's something that is basically common in a lot of countries. And here in the United States, a lot of kids, start learning about complicated math later on as they get older. But when you look at other places in the world, such as like India and China, mathematics is pushed upon the kids when they're a little bit much younger. So once they get a little older, like in middle school, even high school, and even college, they're well equipped, way more advanced in things such as problem solving, and things such as algebra, and things such as geometry, in things such as calculus, trigonometry, and many other things, while a lot of Americans can't even do basic algebra because we don't really focus on that here in the United States. We don't really focus on that here in the United States. We mostly focus on things that makes us feel good or things that's more doesn't have any form of substance in a way. Because I remember when I was going to college, take a drink real quick. I remember when I was going to college, and I started off trying to become a mechanical engineer. And I took a couple courses in the engineering department. But I remember when I was always walking around the department on my free time, I would see a lot of foreign kids coming inside the department. And it kind of caught my attention one day where I had a lot of free time and I was just walking around and I'm just looking around inside classroom in those engineering classroom, and a lot of people that was in those classroom were a lot of foreigners or people that were of the minority group, let's just say that. Because if you see a person that was mostly white, there's a high likely chance that it could be probably just a white American, or it could just be a European or even an Eastern European, because it's kind of rare. It was kind of small amount of white that was actually in the engineering department. There were some, but there were like a small amount. It wasn't really a lot. That means like men and women. Also, when you look at the blacks, there were maybe one or two, maybe like a few Black American who were also in the engineering department. But when you see a couple of them, there's a high likely chance that that Black person is most likely probably from Africa or even the Caribbean. And he's taking the course in engineering. But there was a couple African American or Black American in those courses. But the majority, when it comes to the Black, was mostly foreigners that were either from like Africa or like the Caribbean. And then when you look at the other race, for example, Asian, there was a huge Asian population in the engineering department, a very huge Asian population that was in the engineering department. And most of these Asian population, they were mostly from China, Korea, Japan, it was basically just three of those countries, but you had a couple from like Cambodia, Malaysia, Vietnam, those Southern Asian country. And then you had a huge population also of like Indians or people from like Bangladesh or people from like Pakistan or people from like Saudi Arabia or like the Middle East and things like that. So those were like the basis of like most of the kids in the engineering department when I was taking those courses. So there wasn't a lot of American that was inside the engineering department. And most of them, you know, were trying to be mechanical engineering. Most of them were trying to be civil engineering. Most of them were trying to be structure engineering and many other, or they're just taking like general engineering courses. But most of them also came overseas. Most of them were exchange students. And some of them went back to one that had a better life, and most of them probably stay also here in the United States. So the fact that this H-1B visa provided a lot of opportunity for a lot of foreign workers. And they had skill set that a lot of Americans did not want to really work on, because the school that I was going to, if you go to like a different department, for example, if you go to the department of like education, or the department of like that handles like social science or education or black study or gender study, you will see a huge portion of American that are actually focusing on those degrees instead of focusing on the STEM based degrees. So that this H-1B visa, the government realized that most Americans don't really want to focus on the STEM program. They want to focus on degrees that probably won't serve them, a good amount of money in the future. Because let's just be honest, if you graduate with a bachelor degree in engineering and you graduate with a bachelor degree in English, the chances of you finding a job in engineering is way more higher than it is trying to become a teacher or English major. And the pay is way different, because the equivalent of what a person who has a bachelor degree in engineering makes will be the equivalent of someone who has probably a master or PhD makes in English or teaching. So there's a huge difference when it comes to that. So this is why I guess the US government at that time, around 1990, created a H-1B visa to go overseas to try to find the brightest mind, the smartest people out there, to bring them in the United States, to help with innovation, to help with, helping some of these US companies to be able to provide them skill set, knowledge, and innovation and creativity that they need to still continue functioning and competing in this world. At that time, when you look at the geopolitics that was going on around 1990, that was when the Soviet Union collapsed. And at that time, the world was a bipolar world where we had two polarizing power. We had the East that was controlled by the Soviet Union, and then you have the West that was mostly controlled by the United States. And then around 1989, if I'm not mistaken, the Soviet Union collapsed. And then now the US became a unipolar power, became a unipolar superpower. And at that time, they were competing a lot with a lot of countries that was going on, especially the Soviet Union. So they were competing a lot with like the Soviet Union. And once the Soviet Union collapsed, they basically went on and started dominating the world by starting war all over the place, going to Iraq, going to Yugoslavia, bombing places like Serbia and many other places. But the fact that United States, excuse me. Hold on. Like I was saying, so a lot of American, it was kind of difficult for them to be able to find jobs. I mean, it was kind of difficult for them to be interested in degrees that is mostly STEM-based degrees. And a lot of people from places like India, took the charge. And the government was going inside India, taking some of India, brightest mind to come here in the United States. And you can see that through like when you look up ethnic group that that has the highest what's it called, the highest salary as like a family or per family or things like that. The Indian is probably among the highest. I think it's the Indian or the Korean or things like that. So a lot of them, they will taught a lot of high skills that is highly needed here in the United States. When you look at the Silicon Valley, for example, Silicon Valley has a lot of people from places like India that runs like tech company, tech startup. A lot of them are also in places of influence here in the United States. So many of them are now deciding to go back in the United States, going back to their country. Because recently in Georgia, if I'm not mistaken, because recently in Georgia, the ICE had a crackdown on the Hyundai facility, Hyundai factory in Georgia, where close to, I think, 300 or 400 illegal or immigrant was working, and most of them were people from Korea. And the skill set that they were working on, it was a bunch of microchips and all these other, sophisticated type of things, which a lot of American probably, it'll be kind of hard to find. And I guess once they got cleared, most of them decided to go back to their country because they didn't want to stay here in the United States, which the media did not even talk about. But they did get deported. No, sorry, I take that back. They didn't get deported. They just chose not to come back in the United States. And the United States government was saying, they should come back because the skill set that they had was a very interesting skill set. So this Now, this executive order will put a lot of pressure on so many companies, especially in tech. Now they'll have to basically pay around $100,000 annually as a fee if they do not hire Americans in their jobs, especially American that are suitable to be able to do the jobs that a lot of H-1B visa workers are doing. This is a great thing, especially for a lot of American, because when you look at the unemployment rate here in the United States, I think we have around 4.3% unemployment rate. When you compare, how many people are in the United States, I think the United States has around 127 million people. So if you cut that by half, let's just say the US has around 160 million people that work in the workforce. So 4.3%, that would be the equivalent of about 7 million people that are unemployed currently. So the fact that this executive order came out, it's a good thing, because lately on my channel, The Real Simon Says, if you're new to my channel, please make sure you subscribe. I've covered a lot of videos of tech industries basically laying off a lot of their workers. And a lot of them, had they had some good degree. Like, for example, a lot of computer science major were laid off. A lot of engineers were laid off. A lot of coders were laid off. A lot of programmers were laid off. And they were being replaced by artificial intelligence. And I have plenty of videos like that. If you go to my playlist, you will see a lot of videos of people getting laid off in places such as Microsoft, companies such as Intel, companies such as Apple, Amazon, FedEx, you name it. People are just getting laid off. And most of these tech-based industry is being very much impacted by this. And now some of the skill set that these H-1B visa has, especially if it's an entry level type of job, the government is basically forcing the employer to be able to first look into American population to go find an individual that has that type of skill set to come in and work in that job instead of a H-1B visa worker. This is the benefit that this executive order has, because you have a lot of Americans who got laid off, who were coders, who were programmers, who were computer science major, and they basically got replaced. And hopefully they can transition to a newer skills that some of these H-1B visa workers have, so they can be able to find jobs. And if a H-1B visa applicant that applies to come to the US to work, it has to be someone that has a higher educational skills. So meaning it has to be someone who's probably already have like a doctorate or like a PhD as a degree. It can be someone who has like a bachelor degree or something like that, because with the bachelor degree, you can probably find someone here in the United States that probably has the same skill set as a person who has an H-1B visa, but with the bachelor degree. So this definitely has an impact on a lot of H-1B visa workers, but at the same time, it does kind of benefit some of the American population, especially the one who has those type of skills. But imagine if President Donald Trump decided to basically get rid of the H-1B visa permanently. It would have had a huge impact on the U.S. economy. It would have had a huge, very huge impact on the U.S. economy, because now it will kind of stagnate a lot of innovation here in the United States, because some of these H-1B visa workers, they have the skill set, but in their country, there's a lot of limitation that's set in front of them. Here in the United States, there's a lot of opportunities that a lot of people here in the United States do not take for granted. A lot of people here in the United States do not even, look into, because most of these people that come from foreign country or that has an H-1B visa, they probably had the skill set, they had the idea to create something, but due to the economic system that they run, for example, in a socialist economy or in a socialist country, it's kind of hard for you to really be innovative, for you to really be creative. You're limited in on how you'll be able to basically move forward with the ideas that you have. You're kind of limited. You're kind of limited due to funding. You're kind of limited due to investor and things like that. But here in the United States, if you come here and if your idea makes sense to the right investor, they'll be able to put money on you to be able to, make your idea come true. And that's probably part of the American dream too, if you look at it. But at the same time, a lot of H-1B visa workers, definitely have an impact. So I want to play this video of an Indian news outlet, because a lot of H-1B visa workers also come from India, because India is also like a booming economy, which people don't talk about. It's a booming economy. They have a lot of intelligent people. A lot of American company actually will go to India to be able to utilize some of India labor force to be able to service for their company, especially when it comes to telemarketing. a lot of Indian, especially if you call in for some kind of service, you will hear an accent of someone from India. If you go to like engineering department in a lot of university, you'll see a lot of Indians. There's a huge Indian population here in the United States also. And I kind of want to play this video of an Indian what's it called? TV talking about this H1B1.
Hey, I'm a prosecutor with the Attorney General's office.
In Washington, President Trump signing a
Everyone's going to be happy.
Which are used primarily by Indian workers in the tech and IT sector. The move has sent which are used primarily by Indian workers sector. The move has sent shockwaves across the industry as a significant escalation in cost effectively could make these visas economically unviable. Currently, H-1B visas cost anywhere between $1,700 going up to $4,500. President Trump signed the executive order in the presence of Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, who put it bluntly. He said, and I quote, "Stop bringing people to take our jobs. All big companies are short." Indians are overwhelming beneficiaries of the H-1B visas. More than 70% were granted to Indian nationals.
More than 71%. And annually, United States be giving out around 65,000 H-1B visa throughout the world. So 71% be going to India. Like I said, India is a booming market because I think it's a little bit more easier to actually do that, especially in India, because one, a lot of Indian population speaks English. Their educational system is to teach English, even though they have a thick accent. So it's probably a little bit more easier. And I think countries that mostly speak English is probably easier for the United States government to give out H-1B visa. For example, in countries like Nigeria, there's a huge population that speak English, Ghana, or countries such as Philippines. But like, for example, in China, unless the Chinese are being taught English in school, but I really doubt that, most don't get the H-1B1 because they have to come back here in the United States. They have to come in the United States and try to learn English when they already learned Mandarin and things like that.
China ranks second, which is 12%. Amongst companies, Amazon has more than 10,000 employees on H-1B visa, according to the US government data. TCS second with 5,500 visa holders, followed by Microsoft, Meta, and Apple, as per data of June 2025. The American Depository Receipts, or ADR as we call it, of Infosys and Wipro tumbled in trade after Trump's proclamation. The relationship between India and US has also soured in the last year, with Trump imposing a punitive 50% tariff on Indian goods. Earlier this week, the US government revoked the sanctions waiver on the Chabar port in Iran, which is being developed by India. Amidst all this, reports suggest India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal is set to visit the US next week to hold talks. Before we discuss with experts, here is President Trump and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick on H-1B visa crackdown.
I think they're going to be very happy. And we're going to be able to keep people in our country that are going to be very productive people. And in many cases, these companies are going to pay a lot of money for that. And they're very happy about it.
So the whole idea is no big tech companies or other big companies train foreign workers. They pay the government $100,000, then they have to pay the employee. So it's just non-economic. If you're going to train somebody, you're going to train one of the recent graduates from one of the great universities across our land, train Americans, stop bringing in people to take our jobs. That's the policy here. A year for H-1B visas, and all of the big companies are on board.
Well, this has sparked a debate. The question is, will the H-1B visa program as we know it come to an end? Will higher fees actually create more jobs for American or simply reduce access to skilled talent? Will Indian IT or global tech accelerate offshoring to avoid H-1B visas and dependency? Joining me to take forward the discussion, Shen, CFO of Hexaware. Thank you very much, Vikash, for joining in. First, if you could just tell us, what is the current proportion of your workforce on H-1B visa, new hires and renewals?
So for our company, from a Hexaware perspective, close to 40% of our employee base in the US are H1 dependent. However, the key point to note here is that this number has been reducing post the pandemic. But what we cannot ignore is that a very large proportion of the employee base in the US are still H1 dependent.
And as a percent, so 40% of your American workforce is on H-1B visa. And as a percentage of your overall employee base, what would the number look like?
That would be pretty less, because what we see from an overall US perspective is we have an employee base of 3,000 over an employee base of close to 33,000. So that number is not very significant when you look at it from that perspective.
Okay. Just to go ahead.
That number would be less than 5% as a percentage of the overall Hexaware.
It's about 3.6% roughly, but less of your overall employee base is dependent on H-1B visa. That exact quote of U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick regarding the H-1B visa, saying that stop bringing people to take our jobs. And he emphasized that this $100,000 annual fee is a non-economic measure. It's aimed at protecting employment rather than generating revenue. But the truth is, for Indian IT companies, this is economic, right? Would you be comfortable absorbing a cost of $100,000 for a single visa fee?
I don't think that's the Commerce is going to suggest is going to support that. I mean, $100,000 per visa is going to make overall financials not stack up. I think what's going to happen from an industry perspective, everyone is trying to understand the impact of it, but my take is the companies will impose immediate travel restrictions, and it's going to be something like what we post-pandemic, where there is going to be an immediate travel ban. Companies are going to urge best employees not to leave the country and advising new employees to avoid travel until there is more clarity. In the medium term, I definitely see that deal decisions may take longer.
So a lot of companies are basically encouraging some of their H-1B visa workers to not travel because they fear that if this executive order take in effect, it can have impact in their company because some of the workers could potentially not be able to come inside the United States. And many of them be returning back home, visiting families. And some of them even, will bring back their children, their wife, and even come here and start a family and start a life here in the United States. So some company owners, some business owners and a lot of CEOs are basically encouraging their employee not to be able to travel outside of the United States until basically this H-1B visa executive order is basically well evaluated. Because, when things like this be passing, got to understand there's always some kind of hidden clause that is put in place. And if you did not really read those executive order right, you can be caught in a situation that you don't want to be in.
To close, as companies will evaluate the implications of this order, both from where to deliver from and the commercial. This is also going to lead to more offshoring. We saw that even during post-pandemic, companies were open to the idea of getting the work delivered out of offshore locations rather than having the engineers work out of their facilities in on-site locations. Pricing could be impacted. We are in an industry where we see most of the gains on account of technological advancement. The companies share it with the employee, with the clients. To some extent, pains are also shared between the clients and the service providers. And we saw immediately post-pandemic, if you recall, when the cost of labor went up very significantly, the industry did see a increase in the pricing. And that was after a long period of time. So if this continues, we'll see that there will be pricing pressures and there will be a pricing uptick too. Alternatives of delivery in terms of multiple geos, but to the best of our understanding until now, existing, I don't have the exact number, Rima, but I'll say directionally it's been coming down.
Got that. It's been coming down. So you said the immediate impact is going to be travel restrictions like we saw during COVID, increased offshoring. There will be pricing pressure, which you will need to pass on. Net, what is the impact that you see on the company's margins or industry margins? Will there be pressure?
If this comes into effect immediately, then the companies will have to start paying on an incremental basis while the conversations with the clients are going to take time. So there is going to be...
Everyone's going
Why?
we need
White House has confirmed
on the night a day
$100,000 per.
Which are used primarily.
everyone's going to be happy.
and now when we're
a day after the on the 19th of September.
White House has
Well, they're 100.
US President
H-1B visa.
There's a huge
We need workers. We need great.
There's a huge clarification that's coming from the Trump administration and the H-1B visa announcement that came yesterday. I'm going to give you the clarification straight up top. They announced a $100,000 fee annually for every H-1B visa.
What exactly?
I'm looking for a video.
President Trump.
A very good evening.
President Trump just banned H-1B visas. Well, not exactly banned, but a new executive order puts a significant restriction on the. President Trump just banned visas. Not exactly banned, but a new executive order puts a significant restriction on the program, and it's going to fundamentally change the way that tech companies operate, how they hire, and there's a lot of implications here. So in today's video, we're going to cover what's in the executive order, why the executive order exists, and what it means for you. And if you want to stay up to date on all the latest AI news and how it's impacting the workforce, this is definitely the time to hit like and subscribe. I'm giving you fresh videos 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, and on Sunday we rest. So thanks for subscribing. Thanks for engaging with me in the comments. There are so many interesting comments, and I love to see it. I love to see it, guys. You guys bring the heat. I freaking love it. So what's in this proclamation? Let's look at it. So it's titled "The Restriction on Entry of Certain Non-Immigrant Workers." And again, what are the impacts of this going to be? Is it going to exacerbate tensions between the US and India? Is it going to accelerate AI adoption? Is it going to cause a deeper rift between the countries? Is it going to fix the growing unemployment issues? Again, we're going to get into it today. So let's start by saying why. Why is this a thing? Why is Trump signing an executive order? And I think it's interesting on the whitehouse.gov website, it has this proclamation. And I want to highlight, and I'm going to read the claim verbatim because I think it's interesting. It says, the H-1B non-immigrant program was created to bring temporary workers into the United States to perform additive, high-skilled functions, but has been deliberately exploited to replace rather than supplement American workers with lower paid, lower skilled labor. And I got to say, that claim, I think, is mirrored by a lot of the comments that I read. A lot of you guys in the comments are saying that, Mark, it's not AI, it's always Indian. And, you know, I understand where you're coming from, but I also think that it's foolhardy to disregard the impact.
I think it's also, I think it can be both, but I think majority of it has to do with because AI plays such a pivotal role in a lot of CEOs and a lot of businesses, especially tech businesses, are running towards AI because if you do not innovate, if you do not adapt, you will basically be out of business. And prime example is a company such as Blockbuster. You know, today we talk about Netflix, we talk about Hulu Video, we're talking about what are those streaming platform again? I forgot. But yeah, there's many of them out there. And but before all those streaming platforms such as Netflix, Hulu, Apple TV, there was Blockbuster, and Blockbuster damn near had a monopoly movie streaming arena because they didn't really have any real competitor, or such as probably the only competitor that I knew about. But now you have Redbox and many other things. So Blockbuster did not adapt compared to other companies, because I read an article back then that say the idea of Netflix was presented to the Blockbuster CEO at that time, and he did not believe in it. So he basically put it aside. And now Blockbuster is basically out of business. So a lot of businesses now are basically adapting artificial intelligence. And I think when you look at how many people are basically getting laid off, you can say it's because of the foreign workers who actually have a H-1B visa. Those are the ones that's really taking the job, because indirectly they could be impacted by artificial intelligence also. But the workers that actually have the H-1B visa, they have a specialized skill set that is actually needed for those companies. Most American, either they don't have it or they're not really interested in trying to study in those type of skill set, unlike people from H-1B visa.
That AI is having on the workforce. But that's a whole nother story, a whole nother video. Basically, the Trump White House is making a claim that, you know, these big tech companies are replacing labor with cheap overseas H-1B visa labor, right? That's the claim. And they have stats to back it up. They show that foreign STEM workers have doubled between 2000 and 2019, from 1.2 million to 2.5 million. While the overall STEM employment has only increased 44.5%. So the amount of tech workers that are being employed increased by 44%, but the amount of overseas labor has doubled. Yeah, I mean, I mean, the math doesn't math there. The math doesn't math there. That's definitely seeing, I mean, it backs up their point. They've also seen that this is especially prominent in math occupations, where the foreign share of the workforce has grown from 0.7% to 26.1%. So we're seeing, again, a big increase in foreign workers coming over to the US through the H-1B visa program and taking what would traditionally have been held as American jobs.
Now, the question is, how many Americans are interested in subjects such as math, engineering, technology, science, architect, health? Not a lot, especially when you look at the newer generation, like the Gen Zers. They're not really interested in those type of subjects, because most of them either want to be a TikToker, a YouTuber, an influencer. They want to be in the limelight. They don't want to work, you know, learning how to do a calculus problem. Most of them can't even do basic math. Most of them can't even, you know, do a huge multiplication problem without having a calculator. Most of them can't even write in cursive. So you have all these foreign workers who have an H-1B visa who are basically invited, or usually they come here, or the United States government goes to their country and bring them back here, because the United States government and in some level recognize that they're limited set when it comes to like math, engineering, technology, health, and many more. Because most of American, they don't feel like those degrees is something that they want to do. They want to study things such as gender studies, Black studies, gender equality, writing, sociology, psychology, those type of degrees. And when you go to like a college campuses in those departments, you will see a bunch of American who are actually in those department. But when you go to like an engineering department, or if you go to some of these STEM-based degree department, you will see a lot of foreigners and a lot of Indians that are basically studying in those type of degree.
They also note one software company was approved for over 5,000 H-1B in 2025. And around that same time, it announced that it was going to be laying off 15,000 employees. And while the proclamation doesn't specify the exact company, we recorded a video a few weeks ago on Microsoft, 15,000 people. So Microsoft, is that you? I don't know. Go check out that video. I'll post a link to it up here. Anyway, this issue has been particularly devastating to college graduates. Kids are coming out of college, hundreds of thousands in debt, and they get jobs. It is, you know, I don't think this is being talked about enough. I heard a video on it the other day. I'll post a link to this video too, where the college graduate unemployment rate has increased from 5.8% to 6.6% in just 6 months. It's absolutely shocking.
Yeah, I think it's even higher than that. Especially, I just saw an article that said in the month of August, only 22,000 jobs was created. But also in the same month of August, around 85,000 jobs was lost, or 85,000 people was basically laid off. So it shows that a lot of jobs is not being created, and a lot of college kids are basically not able to find jobs. And considering that the unemployment rate in the United States currently right now is around 4.3%, and when the labor force in the United States is around 160 million people, that's the equivalent of about 7 million people who are basically are unemployed.
It's staggering. Again, watch that video. We go into more detail. But this problem of not hiring U.S. college graduates for these STEM jobs is real. It's a reality. It is happening. I think that much is clear. So what is the key detail? I mean, we're already a few minutes into the video. Thank you for liking. But we haven't actually got into what the executive order does. We just explained why the executive order essentially puts a $100,000 application fee on top of the H-1B visa. So if you're a company, let's say Amazon, and you want to bring over an H-1B visa, you got to pay $100,000 just to submit the application. That's a pretty substantial barrier to entry, okay? And it doesn't really require much more speaking on the matter. But if you were planning on bringing over someone from another country and paying them and undercutting an American wage, it's harder to do that when you're going to have to pay $100,000. It increases the cost tremendously.
$100,000 for a company such as like Amazon or Microsoft or Apple, it's really not a lot of money. But, you know, company always like to get cheaper labor. So maybe that's why they go to those foreign countries and offer them a small amount of money compared to the U.S. Population, because they know the U.S. population probably will demand more. They will ask for more. They'll ask for many other things that a foreigner would just be grateful the fact that they're getting paid more than what they will probably get in their country. And maybe that's why. Maybe they don't want to spend that much money, but for $100,000 for a company such as Apple or Amazon or Microsoft, it's a small amount of money, but companies are stingy. They don't like to basically give a lot of their employee raises and things like that. So I won't be surprised if, you know, they really start rethinking about hiring a lot of H-1B visa workers.
It's not 100%. Should not apply to current H-1B visa workers. So if you're already in, you're in. However, companies are really like reaching out to all of their H-1B visa holders and saying, get back into the country now, because this executive order goes on Monday, September 21st. So there's a very, very real possibility that if you H-1B visa holder that's outside the country, you might not be getting back in. So again, a lot of confusion. I mean, this is happening so fast. Guys, I was actually going to record a video today on Meta's glasses, which are completely sick, so cool. But this news is just so big that I know this is such a big topic of conversation in the comments. I wanted to cover it. And just by the way, guys, you can I would encourage you to sign up for my newsletter, the AIupdate.ai. Go to AIupdate.ai. There's a link below. You can sign up for my newsletter. But if you have a really good insight into this, and the comments are just so sick on the channel, if you have a good insight, post your comment below. If it's great, I will pin it. I've pinned comments before. I will pin them again because, I mean, I want to learn just as much as you. This is an important time to be learning, guys. Okay, so what's the impact here? We've looked at why the executive order. We looked at what's in the executive order, but let's look at, what is the impact? What does this actually mean? Well, it's obviously a major blow to the US tech giants. And I did some math here with ChatGPT and looking at companies like Amazon, for example. Amazon was the top H-1B recipient in 2024, thousands of H-1B visa holders. Now, right now, they have 10,000 H-1B visas as of June of 2025, right? If they were to submit applications for all of those H-1B visas, that's $1 billion in application fees. That doesn't even take into other considerations on renewals and stuff like that, which is still a little bit murky. That's $1 billion in application fees. Do you think that impacts the way that they're going to hire? I would think so. Again, they're already in, so they're not going to be subject to it, but it's setting a precedent moving forward. Microsoft, as of June 2025, had 5,100. That's $500 million in application fees. So we're saying, if these companies, if they are going to be serious about hiring overseas talent, you're tacking on millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars in order to get these people across the, over the line. Now, in some cases, it might be worth it if you're hiring really skilled, really talented labor. I mean, we recorded a video a few weeks ago, I'll post it up here, where Meta was paying $250 million signing bonuses to get top AI talent over to the Meta organization. So you're still going to want to be hiring the top talent. It's still going to be worth it. You'll pay the $100,000 fee in a moment if you're getting top talent, but you're not going to be hiring mid-level or entry-level talent from overseas if you're going to have a $1,000 bill attached to it. What are you going to do? You're going to be hiring American talent, US talent, make America great again. And honestly, to me, it seems like a great thing for college kids who are in STEM right now. They're probably pumping their fists in the air. They're like, I might be able to get a job. This is amazing. I might be able to graduate and get a job. All this stuff that I've been learning and dedicating my life to and spending tens of thousands of might be able to get a job. Sweet. I think it's great. I think they're probably pumping fists pretty hard. This, so that's a side note. The flip side is this is going to definitely hit our Indian IT firms very, very hard and could certainly exacerbate the tensions between the US and India. India holds, by the way, 75% H-1B visas. So
India has a booming economy. It really does. And a lot of people don't talk about it. We always talk about the US economy, always talk about the Chinese economy, but India also has a booming economy. And they have actually a huge tech base that is actually booming in also India. And a lot of Indian also here has a huge impact, especially in AI. When we look at someone like the tech startup company in Silicon Valley, there's a lot of CEOs that are either Indian born or like Indian origin that were born here in the United States. And with the things that's happening between BRICS and the United States, and also with the tariff, recently President Donald Trump actually imposed tariff also like on India and Indian product. So India basically holds around 70% of the H-1B visa. Will this also have an impact on India? I don't know. And also on top of that, what if most of the Indian people decide to go back? This can also have a huge impact on the, innovation in tech, on the production of tech, and just on the creativity, especially how much like Indian plays a huge role here in tech here in the United States.
We're just India. So all my Indian viewers out there, it's gonna look different. different. It's going to be much harder to get an H-1B visa job and come here to the United States. And just a quick side note, I don't love all the manipulation into the markets, particularly with the tariffs and all this stuff. I don't love it. I think you let the free markets do what the free markets do. I don't like the government intervening. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But just as a side note, I like, just
imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete.
Let the markets handle it. The more government gets involved, the more bureaucratic and messy things get. My opinion. You could disagree. You could certainly disagree and put your comments below. It's fine. What else is the impact here? Well, if it's obviously there's going to be an increased cost of labor, which as a result is going to lead to an increased cost. That iPhone that you love, those softwares that you love, those enterprise softwares that you're using, they could definitely increase in cost. The other impact is that, companies are adaptable. They're going to adapt. They're going to move. They're going to juke. And I think that this could, certainly increase the speed of AI automation and adoption. I mean, I don't know how much faster you could increase that speed because, companies are laying off thousands of employees to, at least at the very least, AI automation and then adjust accordingly. But, if the labor increases dramatically, the urgency of leveraging AI is going to increase.
Yeah, a lot of companies probably, would not want to have a labor force that they're required to pay like a huge amount of money, like especially here in America, because it's actually beneficial for them to actually go in places like India and China and many other places where they can offer them a little bit less than what they will probably offer an American worker. And I can see a lot of company not wanting to pay a lot of American a higher wages compared to the H-1B worker. And they will probably start thinking about taking other measures, like he said, to speed up the AI system in their company, because it seems like it will make sense a little bit more for them to implement artificial intelligence inside their operation rather than implementing American inside their operation, because the cost will just be too high. They will be asking for healthcare. They will be asking for days off. And, there's just so many things that comes with it when you're dealing with human beings. But when it's like robotic or AI, you don't have to deal with no healthcare. You don't have to deal with no sick leave. You don't have to deal with no paternity leave and so many other things. And a lot of companies most likely will try to adapt, or speed up the process of implementing artificial intelligence inside their operation to basically escape this process of trying to hire a lot of American, because it could cost them a lot of money in the future.
I talked about this, which you can get at aiupdate.ai, drops every Saturday. But when you're determining to take on a project, because there's so many different projects, there's so many different things that we could be learning, you need to have a way as an organization of determining which projects you should focus on. And one of the metrics that I look at is the urgency, like how urgent is this? And I also like to attribute a dollar value to it. Okay, what is the dollar value of this problem? And so if there was a company that was on the fence about getting AI into a certain role, but it was lower on the scale as far as urgency, it was lower on the scale because of the dollar valuation. Well, now they're saying, well, if we're going to bring over talent from H-1B visa program, it's going to cost us another $1 million. It increases the urgency and the cost savings of working on that AI project. So this could move AI automation higher up on the pecking order of projects to work on. Okay, this is certainly going to shift to, I don't see how companies under these types of restrictions could be hiring lower skilled labor and getting H-1B visas. They're just going to be bringing over the top labor, the top skills, which, I'm for that. We want the best of the best here, man. I don't care, who I don't care your skin color, your religion. I do not care. If you are on board with the American way of life, if you're on board with freedom, if you're on board with meritocracy, with creating a better world, with solving interesting problems, come on over. We want you. We want you. If you're into, if you don't love the idea of freedom, if you don't like the idea of meritocracy, then, this is not the place for you. All right? This is not the place for you. We want freedom, loving, it's about freedom, baby. Braveheart's my favorite movie for a reason. All right. Now, this could also shift the other resources, so I don't get off too much of a tangent here. The other impact here is a shift to offshoring and remote work, because it doesn't appear to me that type of work is going to be impacted by these shifts. So companies certainly may say, well, Jim, we were thinking about bringing you over the visa program. We'd like to work with you, but we're just going to work with you offshore. You can do remote work from your home there in India, China, Bangladesh, wherever you're at. So more offshoring, less coming to America type stuff happening, I would see. Okay.
I mean, this is already happening, especially with telemarketing. When you call like the customer service for a company, there's a high likely chance you're someone who's probably like in a foreign country, because America, when you look at the economic back then, like America has basically deindustrialized, and most of our industry basically went overseas. And now some economic expert will consider us more of a service economy. So a lot of company now need service, and they want to use, labor as cheap as possible. So they will go in places like India. So a lot of remote work could potentially also become something that is common in places like India, because a lot of companies would try to offshore their service, especially because in those countries they can pay someone maybe $2 an hour compared to here in the United States, which the federal minimum wage is $7.25. But in some state, or depending on which state you're in, it ranges from 12 to 15 to even maybe $17. So it's a huge, there's a huge significance when it comes to, how those companies will be able to spend money. And it's more attractive for them to probably offshore some of their load, especially when it comes to like service and customer service or telemarketing.
Okay. So to kind of put a bow on this thing, what does this mean for us? And I'm going to stay consistent with, I think it's important. So we need to focus on what we can control. Focus on what you can control. There's a lot of noise out there, and we want to be aware of what's happening. That's why I'm recording these videos 6 days a week. We want to know what's happening, but we want to focus on what can we control? What can we wrap our arms around? Trump passing the H-1B visa, you can't control that. A foreign war, you can't control that. Focus on what you can control. Don't get caught up in all the noise, Keep upskilling. Keep reinventing yourself. I talk about this quite a lot, and I haven't heard anyone disagree with me. You may disagree. I'd love to hear it. Prove me wrong on this, that we're living in an age where you are going to need to reinvent yourself every 2 years the rest of your professional life. You're going to need to continue to reinvent yourself because technology is moving so quickly, so rapidly. I honestly don't know what I'm going to be doing 2 years from now, but I do know that I'm going to continue to upgrade my skills. I'm going to continue to reinvent myself. And what I'm going to do, and this is what I encourage you to do, by doing that, by continuously upgrading yourself, when the opportunities come, you have the opportunity, you're ready. Because if you're sitting on the bench saying things are fine now, you're not going to be ready when the opportunities come. You understand? You need to be in a place where it's like, put me in, coach. I'm ready. I'm warmed up. I'm stretched. Put me in. Be ready, guys, because the skills that you've been building the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you can leverage those, you can use those, but those are not going to be the same skills you need in this new world. And I really hope this message reaches someone today, because it's too dangerous to be comfortable right now. All right, it's just too comfortable. You can't be comfortable right now. Keep upskilling. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thanks for subscribing to the
I agree with him. I completely agree with him because, you know, things are really just changing every year, and you got to be able to adapt. I remember I read this quote. It says, it's better being prepared and not get the chance than get the chance and not be prepared. Like he said, with the implication of artificial intelligence, how rapidly it's changing, how rapidly it's being, you know, intertwined with our daily life. You know, things are changing almost every year. And you got to be able to be innovative. You got to be able to be creative. You got to be able to try to find yourself. You got to be able to find skill set that you can utilize in the future. Because for me personally, the thing that kind of woke me up was during COVID. Because during COVID, you know, a lot of things were shut down. And for a lot of people that actually had to physically be at a job, most of them had to stay home. And now they were stuck at home. They wasn't able to basically pay some of their bills, and things just became a little bit more difficult for them until, you know, the government released some kind of restriction, especially with the face covering and many other things, where people now can go back to work. But it just woke me up and just got me thinking. I'm like, you know what? You got to be innovative. You got to create something for yourself, whether you're reading a book where you're trying to make yourself better, or you're trying to learn a new skill, or you're trying, for example, if you're trying to become like a trader or in stock, you got to look for videos and expert and people that actually are doing it where you can learn from them. There's multiple things that you can do. You can start a social media channel where you're talking about things that interest you. There's multiple things that you can do nowadays that, you know, it will be able to provide you a lot of things in the future, especially with how AI is basically coming. A lot of jobs is basically being cut. A lot of people are basically losing their jobs, what they're going to do for the next 2 to 3 years. So I encourage a lot of people who are watching this to be able to just innovate. Always, you know, keep your mind open. Remember, it's better being prepared and not get the chance or an opportunity. But it says it's better being prepared and not get the opportunity than get the opportunity and not be prepared. That's what that quote says. So, you know, if you like this video, please make sure you like, you share, you subscribe, and please leave a comment. I'll love to hear your comment. So far today, what I talked about mostly was about the mass shooting that happened in Nashua, New Hampshire, where one person was deceased and a couple people were injured. And so far there was only one suspect, and until now the cops or the police has not found the guy. And another topic that I talked about was about the H-1B visa and how it could potentially have an impact on the U.S. economy, on the U.S. population, and how most of H-1B visa workers, how much, you know, how much role they play here in the United States economy. So I'm about to really log off. Appreciate you guys. Till next time.